Welcome to the Philly and Brian show. Oh, wait a minute. The Brian and Philly show? Huh. I guess it is the Brian and Philly show. Once again, Brian is not here. I'm Philemon Viennas, and we have 5 topics this week. All of them are in the hat, and we're going to draw them out. Even though we're going to talk about all 5 topics, I guess it's just like for random order. I don't know. I just like picking out topics out of a hat. Okay, first up, out of the hat, the Hong Kong protests and the detainment of a UK consulate employee. So, if you don't know what is going on in Hong Kong right now, protests, a lot of protesting. Basically, the chief executive of Hong Kong, Carrie Lam, issued agreed to a law that would allow anybody in Hong Kong to be extradited to mainland China. Hong Kong is kind of like a semi-autonomous state within China. I mean, it's part of China, but it operates under democratic principles. This would significantly hurt those democratic principles. It would allow the Beijing government to basically take anybody out of Hong Kong that they wished. That, of course, did not go over well with the pro-democratic society in Hong Kong. And you can see those protests behind me. They've been going on for about a month and a half now. Recently, a UK consulate employee from Hong Kong, he works in the UK consulate in Hong Kong. He was traveling to mainland China, which these consulate employees do often for business, and then he was coming back to Hong Kong, was stopped and detained for soliciting prostitution. His name is Simon Chang, and he has been posting pro-democratic imagery on social media. Obviously, the Chinese government does not like that. Also, there's been tensions between the UK and China of lately over the democratic principles of Hong Kong. If you don't know, Hong Kong was a colony of the United Kingdom, and the UK gave Hong Kong essentially to China in the 90s. Yep, in the 90s. In 1997, the British handed Hong Kong back to China. This guy, Simon Chang, was detained. Chinese immigration officials are reportedly searching travelers' phones and bags as they cross the border for evidence that they have taken in part of these protests. This man has a girlfriend, by the way, too. And he was detained trying to cross back into Hong Kong through immigration. There's a lot of elements to these things. The protests aren't stopping anytime soon. Xi Jinping, president of China, has repeatedly denounced these protests. I don't know what's going to happen with this kid. Prostitution charges are between 10 and 15 days detainment, and the person will be charged 5,000 won, which is about $700 US. He has not been heard of since August 8th, which was the 23rd today, so he is going on his 14th, 15th day today. So we'll see what happens with him. I feel bad for him. Okay, next topic. You know what? I'm just going to ditch the hat and just go straight down the list. All right. Trump wants to buy Greenland. It was leaked from one of the White House aides or someone in the freaking White House that he was interested in buying Greenland. Immediately, like the next day, met Frederiksen, the Prime Minister of Denmark, called the idea absurd. And then that triggered a response from Donald Trump in front of his freaking chopper, like he always does. It's the dumbest thing ever. I don't know why he does it. You can't hear basically anything he's saying. He's freaking yelling. The reporters are yelling. Anyway, that's another story. He called the comments nasty, and then on Twitter he said that he was canceling his meeting with the Danish Prime Minister in September, or his trip to Denmark to meet with the Prime Minister in September, because she called it absurd, and she said she wasn't going to sell Greenland to the United States. And then that caused this response from the PM. Let's watch it.
Who remains one of Denmark's closest allies. I was looking forward to having a dialogue on the many shared interests Denmark has with the US.
Oh my gosh. You know what's funny about that? She's literally crapping her pants. You know, this is what happens when you deal with crazy people, alright? You have to anticipate these things, Met, alright? You have to, alright? Now she's like freaking out because she thinks she pissed off Donald Trump, which she did, you know. It's so dumb. Donald Trump is erratic. He's insane. He's not fit to be president of the United States. I will go on record saying that. But the man freaking somehow magically places himself in the best positions, you know, and I don't understand how he does it. There's no thought process behind it. You know, he's so freaking sporadic. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. He might actually pull this off. He might pull this off, and I'm not joking. Like, this might actually happen where maybe not the entire landmass of Greenland will be owned by the United States, but there's going to be talks between Denmark and the U.S. now for the U.S. to occupy probably a large percentage of Greenland. I don't know if it's going to happen, but, you know, that might actually happen now because the Denmark PM, Mette Frederiksen, is absolutely crapping herself, okay, over this thing. I don't know how he does it. Now, logically, and Donald Trump does not think logically, but logically it is a good idea for the United States to have Greenland as part of as a territory. It's logical. All right, Greenland has a lot of natural resources, and strategically it makes sense. China's moving into the Arctic. Russia has been moving into the Arctic. It makes sense. All right, just for proximity, for intelligence on those countries. Do I want the U.S. under this administration to purchase Greenland? Absolutely not. We're gonna freaking drive the world into obliteration with climate change. There's going to be no environmental analysis on Greenland whatsoever under this administration. We're going to absolutely destroy that landmass. It makes sense from a political perspective. It does make sense, and I don't know how, but he's going to manage to pull something out of his butt like he always does. I don't know how he does it. He wings everything, literally wings everything in his life, and I don't know how he's going to do it, but based off of Mette Frederiksen's comments, listen, he's won. He's already won. Based off those comments I showed you, he's already won. I would rather Denmark have control of Greenland because at least they'll try to protect it environmentally because Greenland is huge for the world environment. He's going to work his way in to having to occupy for the U.S. to occupy part of Greenland. I already know it. I already know. He already won this one. He won this one. And it makes sense. It actually makes sense. Like I said, I don't want the U.S. to own it, but it makes sense that they would want it, okay? It's not erratic. People are like, oh, it's crazy. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. Why would the president ever want to buy Greenland? Because it makes sense. It does. You know, he probably just thought of it while he was on the toilet, but it actually makes sense. Let me just read off some statistics too. Greenland has between 9 and 10% unemployment. That's large if you don't know. There's high rates of suicide and alcoholism, according to the BBC. 2/3 of the budget comes from Denmark. That means that the autonomous region of Greenland is not producing enough GDP to actually sustain the island. All right. It makes sense. It does. Do I like it? No, but it makes sense. And it would actually be beneficial for the United States to purchase Greenland. All right, next one. Peppa the Pig got bought out for $4 billion. Yeah, that cartoon right there that looks like your 2-year-old drew it or a 2-year-old drew it. Got bought out for $4 billion by Hasbro, the toy company. And yes, Entertainment One does have a bunch of other content such as Trailer Park Boys, classic Netflix show. But the company earns most of its earnings from Peppa Pig and PJ Masks. What did I say? Peppa the Pig? I meant Peppa Pig. Peppa Pig, yeah. So if you know a 2 or 3-year-old, if you know any little kid, get them drawing. Get them drawing fast. It's time. It's that time for the photo of the week. Okay, let me walk you guys through this one. Let's admire it real fast. That is me eating peanut butter out of a jar. And I'm actually very happy about it. I do that a lot. You know, it's good for you. I don't know if it's actually good for you. I like doing it. Tastes good. Actually tastes good. Jif, please sponsor me in the future, because I probably account for half of your earnings. Just saying. Moving on, a little bit more serious topic. Yeah, the Amazon. That big jungle in South America. Yeah, it's on fire right now. Reportedly, this year there have been 75,300 fires in the Amazon. 20% of the world's oxygen comes from the Amazon. This is a huge problem. 228 megatons of CO2 has been released this year, according to the BBC. That's a lot of CO2. That's also a lot of oxygen that's not getting pushed out into the atmosphere. Also, trees absorb CO2 as well. That is a lot of CO2 not being absorbed as well. Obviously, CO2 is crushing to the environment. It increases not only health hazards for humans, but it just destroys the atmospheric layer above the earth. Also, we need oxygen to breathe. Just saying. If there's almost 8 billion people in the world, we kind of need a lot of oxygen. So it's not good that 20% of our oxygen supply, or 1/5 of our oxygen supply, is on fire right now. Now, fires in the Amazon do not start due to environmental reasons. They are not started on their own. They're caused by humans. Basically, in the Amazon, to clear out farmland, farmers light the forest on fire. These fires aren't controlled, obviously, and they have spread now. Most of the Amazon, I believe, is located in Brazil. So, Jair Bolsonaro, who is he annoys me. He annoys me a lot. He suggested that the fires were started by a non-government organization to cause harm to his government, to sort of, I guess, undermine his government. And he said that Brazil doesn't have the resources to put these fires out. That's bad, since the smoke is actually has traveled already to Sao Paulo, which is, I think, like 2,200 miles away from where the fires originally started. I didn't mean 2,200. It's a little more than 2,000 miles away. They need to be doing something to really suppress these fires, because that's not good. If the Amazon goes up in flames, there's going to be a lot of issues on Earth. The G7 is this weekend, which is a meeting amongst a bunch of world leaders, 7 world leaders. I hope someone does something about this, and I hope this is brought up, because this is actually really serious. I mean, at least your people are suffering. President Bolsonaro, your people are suffering, seriously. Next one. This just came out. I just saw this interview, actually. This is like very recent. Patrick Byrne, who was the CEO until this week of Overstock.com. I saw his interview with Fox News. He came out and stated that there were people in the deep state that knew about the Russians targeting the Hillary campaign and targeting the Cruz campaign, the Trump campaign, and the Rubio campaign for the elections between 2015 and 2016, for the presidential elections in 2016, but this happened over the period of 2015 to 2016. What is the deep state? For all of you out there who think the world is just full of peaches and rainbows and candy, I really wish it was that way. But it's not. There's a deep state pretty much in every country. In the US, it's referred to a group of people or a non-government unit that is comprised of a bunch of high-level officials that operates outside the boundaries of democracy and democratic practices. You could say to an extent that Guantanamo Bay was a part of the deep state for a long period of time. It's not the CIA. The CIA can be considered part of the deep state, but it's not an official organization. And they do some really shady shit. They do a lot of shady stuff that you probably don't even know about. You definitely don't know about. Anyway, Patrick Byrne said that he met with a Russian woman by the name of Maria Butina, who was given the responsibility by the Russian government. She was a Russian agent. You could say she was a Russian spy, to make contact with him, a member of the Clinton campaign and several members of the Trump, Rubio, and Cruz campaigns. So now he thought he was helping the FBI, but it turns out that the FBI did not actually cite this whole operation. It was specifically, he named James Comey, former FBI director, and Peter Strzok, who was a high-level FBI agent. Basically, this woman makes contact with Patrick Byrne, the CEO of Overstock. He goes on a few dates with her. He thinks that there's a possibility that he can help mend the relationship between Russia and the U.S. and really help promote blockchain within Russia. He tells who he thinks is the FBI. They give him clearance to go ahead and keep meeting with this woman. She makes contact with the Hillary campaign, I guess, to undermine the Hillary campaign. And then she moves solely to the Trump, Cruz, and Rubio campaigns for the 2016 elections and to undermine those campaigns. He goes and tells who he thinks is the FBI. He calls them the Men in Black, which are agents of... It's hard to classify these people. They're not FBI agents, but they're agents that work for people who work for the FBI in this case. So he goes and tells them, they tell him to leave it alone and they're not going to do anything. So they knew that this woman, Maria Butina, was meeting with members of the Trump, Cruz, and Rubio campaign, and they didn't do anything about it. They essentially let this happen. They let essentially these people in the campaign incriminate themselves. That's where you get the Paul Manafort and the Roger Stone incidents. Look, these guys are idiots. They should have never been meeting with the Russians, but high-level members of the FBI knew that this was going on. They didn't do anything to stop it. These were members, I hate to say it, of the Obama campaign. Did President Obama have anything to do with this? Probably not, but they're members of his administration, not campaign. And they essentially let this happen. They knew about it the entire time, and then they chose to go ahead and investigate Donald Trump. Not only that, they also let the Russians undermine the Clinton campaign too, as well. Patrick Byrne was in the middle of all this. He's a fantastic CEO. He was leading Overstock probably to new highs as a company. He was working on a lot of cool things with blockchain. And he was just thrown in the middle of this because he had low-level security clearance, and he just happened to meet this woman, Maria Butina, who was essentially probably trying to use him to get to these political figures. And he had a romantic relationship with her, and he came out about it. He is a good guy, and he's a trustworthy guy. He also said that Maria Butina met with Donald Trump after, I guess, a rally. He didn't say how many times she met with him, but she definitely met with him at least once. He offered to take her to the Bahamas because she was telling him what she was going to do, and he offered to try to take her away from that situation. And these guys in the deep state just said, no, let her do what she's going to do. They were trying to set up the Republican Party. At the end of the day, that's what they were trying to do. Once she made contact with the one person in the Clinton campaign, they said, okay, we're completely hands off. We're going to let her do what she's going to do. And now she's in prison. These guys are so stupid. By letting her undermine the democratic process, to have them try to undermine the Republican Party just makes the U.S. look so bad. It makes it so bad. Whoever gave these orders, whether it was James Comey or Peter Strzok, whoever in the FBI, it had to come from Comey because he was at the top. I'm speechless. I'm actually speechless. These guys in the deep state, it's real. It's real. I don't care how many people out there say it's not real. It's real. It's freaking real. They don't operate by the same rules. They're out for their own agenda, and they're going to accomplish it no matter what has to happen. I hope Patrick Byrne is okay. I really do. I hope he gets out of this thing alive with his life. He said a lot of stuff that is literally life-threatening. But the thing is, in order to survive against the deep state of any government, you either have to have an army, like a physical army, or you have to have an army of programmers, because code doesn't die, and they know that. And he has an army of programmers. You don't go after the government, and you never go after a guy who knows tech, because they can screw you from any part of the world. Okay, that's it. Jeez, I hope I don't get freaking taken out by the deep state. Thank you for watching the Brian and Philly show. Without Brian, once again, we'll be here. Oh, we won't be here next week. We're not going to be here next week. I'm going somewhere. I'm getting taken out by the deep state.